Welcome to Feature in a Short. My name is Laura Davi. I'm the host for tonight's episode. Feature in a Short, produced by Fourwind Films, is a podcast event where movie makers present, watch, and discuss cinema. Tonight, our appointed contributor is Justin Josephot. Working with Justin is very challenging, but we all love Justin because he's very determined in what he does. So the result of his work is always amazing. For his short film, Justin brought the documentary series Marcellus Hall, an Artist in New York City, a documentary series that I helped produce. With this documentary series, we won several awards at serious festivals, and we also got Bob Odenkirk attention. Here's Justin introducing the short.
Thanks for all coming. This is a documentary that I worked on for about 5 years, interviewed my relative, and it's just me and him sitting in a living room and chatting. Like Laura said, she was a producer on it. She helped me get all the music rights. There's 650 plus illustrations used in here. They're all shown chronologically. The music that you hear is also heard chronologically throughout his life. He goes through his entire creative career. And Mars, if you're not familiar with his work, is an illustrator and toured around the world with his music. So he's an artist and a musician, and all of the music that you hear and all of the visuals that you see were created by him.
During the movie, we served white and orange cheese, steak, and a salad. The salad was with tomatoes, carrots, green leaves, and walnuts. After the screening, we had a short discussion about the movie.
This is fun. I mean, the hitchhiking here was fun. When I was in Europe, I went to college in Rome, and for a year, and I hitchhiked all over Europe, and it was great.
Yeah, he actually did it too in England or Ireland. I forget what it was, but we cut that out of the film. That was one of the last. I was like, we just need one hitchhiking story, but he did it quite a bit.
Quite the character. Does he ever end up getting married?
We actually cut out another story because he was actually too similar to the other love story. But yeah, he's still single. He lives in the Lower East Side.
He seems heavily invested in his love life.
He is, and
It was a great
series
you did. I love
Thank
it.
you.
I mean,
The song isn't mentioned in here, but the song that he inspired for Modest Mouse is "Float On." If you guys know that song.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he got that, and then Isaac Brock, like they say, got tattooed on his arm, "Life is Still Sweet," because that inspired the song that made him famous. And
what a talented man. I mean, illustrator, musician, performer,
yeah.
poet.
One other thing I want to do as a caveat that I forgot to say ahead of time, the first 3 episodes are really choppy, and I kind of did that on purpose. I shot everything in 23:9:8, but I wanted it to look older. So usually I screen these separately, but this is like one file that I played to make it easier. So this file was brought back to 23:9:8 because the last 2 episodes stay in 23:9:8 because it's more modern. And so I wanted to have that difference to be more of a style point. So that's why it's a little choppy in the first couple. This isn't the best encode.
Certainly gave an older video vibe.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very subtle, but it's done on purpose, and I still don't regret it, but I feel like I have to say it, you know? And I just love making movies and telling stories, so I'm spending a lot of time to curate it to make it right, you know? I'm working on a feature, and this is one that I thought I would finish quickly, because I wanted to finish something, and it still took me 5 years, so just me and a camera making a documentary. Yeah, and I've been working on a feature for like 12 years, so hopefully it finishes it next year. Documentary education.
After the discussion, Justin brought the feature motion picture Fog of War. With the flick, we served Vietnamese beef and lettuce curry.
This is The Fog of War. It is one of the main movies that inspired me, made me know that I could do Marcellus Hall, Artist in New York City, because it's just talking to one person. It's Robert McNamara, who was involved with many administrations. He was never one of the absolute top positions, but right next to that, Secretary of State, Department of Defense, I think, right?
Yeah.
This is one of the most enlightening, and it's one of my favorite docs.
After Fog of War, which is a movie about the Cold War, we had a discussion about it with Americans and the Russian.
Well, because it's just one person talking, and it's really the main one that influenced Marcellus Hall in New York City, because it's just a person talking about his life and his entire career. I basically used the same formula. I didn't use any sound ups from history from Mars, even though there were some, because he's an artist and he created everything, to just stick with what he created. But this is what made me know you can do that. But it's so interesting what you can do with a feature film, and you can choose to go deep into the Vietnam War for 8 hours like Ken Burns did, or you can make something like this and take somebody who is a part of, they started with World War I with this, and they end up through the Vietnam War. They don't even cover his time in the World Bank or anything like that. And it's really about generally how American policy was thought through a lot through World War II all the way through the Vietnam War, using a little bit of history before that. So that's such a huge picture. In an hour and a half, you can't explain what was going on in the Vietnam War from the U.S. side. But this puts such a light on that other things don't, because they concentrate only on the Vietnam War or the World War II. That's what captured me in this, and I think that's what captured me in Mars's doc as well, is seeing how a creative career is created before you have success in your career. Because when I was making that, that's what I was striving for, and Mars was sort of like a mentor for me. So he was that roadmap for me. I just asked him all the questions that I had since I moved to New York City, because he was one of the 3 people I knew in New York before I came here. I just think it's interesting. People try to do all these crazy things to keep people interested. You can make anything interesting as long as you find it interesting. And you just have to really concentrate and think, as much as it is what you think is interesting, think about your audience and how much they might want along the way. And that's at least my goal.
Also, just that camera technique he developed, like, it does feel like you're having a conversation with this person all of a sudden, which puts it in a weird place.
Yeah, I mean, you see it all the time now, but that was like 20 years, I think it was 2002, I think is right.
What made it special, the technique?
He had mirrors set up basically where the camera lens was, so he would look directly in the camera lens, but he would see Errol Morris as the interviewer. He would see him and look into his eyes like they were the camera lens.
I see.
And so it's like he's talking to a person, instead of usually you have a person look right to the left of the camera.
Got it.
Or across the screen. So it doesn't feel so direct. And I didn't use that in mine. I was right next to the camera all the time. But that's why it feels so intimate, because he's staring you in the eyes wherever you're watching it.
He made a name for it.
It's like the iDirect? Well, that's what they call it now, but there was this original one, I think.
He actually called it.
It's pretty popular and famous, and I've used it in fashion tutorial movies. You get these inventions that really ripple through cinema a lot. That's one that really, in the 20th century, like Kubrick with his Steadicam, you see that all the time. Breathless with reintroducing jump cuts in a storytelling way, which you see constantly here.
And I think McNamara is an interesting character because he never really apologizes, but you do sense he's uncertain of his place in history after all of this. Because, I mean, he was a war criminal. He admits to it. Yeah. So it's interesting to see him and almost humanize him to a certain extent. But I think those clips, for this purpose, they really have a context. You need somebody, the real accurate historical portrayal of what's going on, because he, as a narrator, is just as bad as anybody else about their own life. So
I think that's an interesting point too, because if you only let him talk about his career and you're not given context outside of that through these facts that we know and are well documented in these conversations they have.
An artist or somebody who's reflecting on their career, I think it's the historical stakes and significance of what he did and his place in the world. Like the stakes are higher to get that story right and to tell it in a way where all the truth is out there and you can take what you want out of it.
And it's macro versus micro too. It's like Mars is only talking about his life, and he's talking about the lives.
Yeah, this has talking about carpet bombing a country.
Yeah, exactly. He did this exact same movie with Rumsfeld. Yeah.
Oh, really?
He basically makes the Rumsfeld version of this. Because Rumsfeld, much like McNamara, who from World War II on is touching all these major historical points, Rumsfeld was around for years and years before he was Secretary of Defense or whatever. It's a similar thing. I mean, they both could be war criminals, I would say.
Oh, yeah, but it's such a difference. Rumsfeld's such a cocky son of a bitch. He's like, of course I did it, and that's what I would do again. Kind of attitude. He's making a joke about it the whole time. Yeah. I don't think he knew or understood Rumsfeld as much as he knew and understands McNamara.
He's an old man by this point. He's had a lot of time to reflect about all of this, and I think maybe he's a little less hesitant to feel bad for what he did.
I love the way it was done. It was so easy to understand and be interested. It moved me. It just kept moving me. It put in perspective on the personal and for the overall. The question, was he a war criminal? Were we a war criminal? Were we as a nation a war criminal?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think you could make an argument for it.
Yes, of course. That's why I asked it. It's having lived through a lot of this.
Yeah, it's the different perspective that we don't have.
Like when you live in Russia, you see how history is changed, but then it's coming back.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
the Soviet Union just ended, and
Absolutely.
now it's like came back. Like Stalin just died, and Stalin came here alive with us. And now I'm gonna go to Russia soon, and I'm so terrified because when I was living 5-6 years ago, and I got this sense of extreme fear that you can't trust anyone. No authority, no government, no police. You avoid police in the street. You try to avoid any governmental organizations, and you sense this fear and pressure. Nothing gonna help you. This protest, it doesn't work, and how they deal with people through killing. They will poison you, they will kill you, and to take your life, it's okay. And the same how all the opposition flew from Russia, but it wasn't enough. The half of them, they were poisoned. It's just people don't talk about this.
My father flew with the B-29s over Japan.
Oh, wow.
So I had a lot of conversations with him, and he was never one to brag about his military service. He was only 20.
I feel like nobody in World War II bragged
That's
about
right.
it after the fact.
He understood the seriousness of it. He
Yeah.
understood Pearl Harbor. He had to do it from his perspective. This documentary meant so much to me. I learned so much about war. I learned so much about our responsibility in war. Everyone's responsibility in war.
That's all for this episode. Feature in a Short is sponsored by Fourwind, a Minnesota post-production house, where you can get up to 70% back of what you spend on films via tax incentives. In the forecast to look forward to, you can go to our website to purchase Marcellus Hall and Artemis in New York City for just $2. There you can also find children's books and printed artwork from Marcellus. And you can purchase that. My personal favorite book illustrated by Marcellus is What's New the Zoo? And you should buy it for your kids or for yourself. Justin gave it to me for Women's Day. Thank you to everyone who helped create podcasts, or our guests, Justin Joseph Holt for bringing the movies, Billy Joe Leitinen for editing the podcast, and Hans Bilger, who mixes the podcast in Germany. The theme song you're listening to is New Tires by Silent Partner. That's it. I'm out, finally, and Justin will talk to you soon. Good luck.